Tina Arena, welcome back to the Stellar Podcast.
Hi, Nicholas. How are you?
I'm good. You last spoke with us on the podcast in 2024. Now we're here 2 years later, and you're celebrating an even bigger milestone, which is an incredible 50 years in show business. You have a documentary about your life called Tina Arena, Unravel Me, which is going to be having its world premiere this week in your hometown at the Melbourne International Film Festival.
Yes.
So 50 years in one industry is extraordinary. When you hear that milestone said out loud, how does it feel?
It feels a little, really honestly, it feels a little surreal because 50 years is a hell of a long time, especially in any working sector. But I think 50 years in show business is a massive achievement. And I just don't think I can really believe that it's been 50 years. And actually, I can't believe that I've survived. To be really honest with you, I think that one of the wonderful things about the day and age in which we live in today is that whilst the internet is very, very much the Wild West, there's also an element of it where people can understand things and what truly goes on and can research and do all sorts of things and find out information that, perhaps they would never have been able to through mainstream media, because mainstream media is so contrived in so many ways. So, that's a good thing that people are actually aware that having a life in showbiz as a public figure is unbelievably challenging. Really is.
When did the idea for the documentary come to fruition?
I think we started talking about doing a documentary probably a couple of years ago. And because I felt that it was important that I was very, very much the one behind telling the story as opposed to leaving it up to other people and up to their interpretations. So I'd say the discussions probably would have started a couple of years ago. And I feel that it's important that people hear my story from me, that they hear how I felt and what I've lived through and all of that. It was only ever going to work coming from my mouth and it being in my own words. And so it's been a kind of a tough experience, really. I mean, there's a lot of wonderful things about it, but the complexities of putting a documentary together for 50 years in an hour and a half is almost, ludicrous as an idea, because how do you encapsulate 50 years in 90-minute viewing, So it's a lot of work. It is unbelievably complex. There's a lot of people involved. Then there's all the intricacies of footage and who owns what and where does it come to. So the whole way in which a documentary comes together is incredibly difficult as an exercise. So not only does it bring up a lot of stuff that you went through, but it's also the business, the technical aspect of everything that is pretty overwhelming, actually. And also, I guess, it taught me something as well too, Nicholas, is that it's really interesting as an individual how much power you don't have over your own image and over your likeness and all of that. And I found that to be quite revealing. I thought, wow, here it is that, it becomes unbelievably tricky to be able to tell your own story. So it's been quite an adventure, like a proper adventure, and it's taught me a lot. It's taught me a lot.
Well, I was going to ask you, you said the word tough, and I was just thinking about how making a documentary like this would require you to pore over your personal history and your archives, right?
Mm.
I'm wondering if doing that work surprised you or changed how you viewed your career or yourself as you went through all of that stuff.
I think both things. I think it surprised me, definitely. I couldn't, I still struggle to fathom that I've had a very big life. And so it was a surprise. Some things were really beautiful. When you go through those boxes of photos, some things were a little bit more difficult. I think ultimately, though, Nicholas, I think what it's made me do is it's made me respect the person that I am, and it's made me respect the fact that I've worked very hard to maintain ultimate integrity. I think that that's what this exercise has really been for me. It's made me realize that what has always driven me is honesty. And when you are somebody that's driven by honesty, you're also in a position of being ridiculed all the time, because people don't want to know the truth. A lot of the time, it's not the truth is not convenient, So
Yeah.
for me, it's just about being honest. I can't be anything else. I don't know how to do anything else, actually.
Were there aspects of your life, or was there anything you knew from the outset you just simply weren't going to cover in the film or talk about in the film?
Absolutely. There are things that I can't go into, Nicholas.
Yeah.
I can't, because I put myself in a position of extraordinary danger. And, and I'm not interested in any kind of defamation, litigation. I'm really not. And so, of course there's going to be things that I can't talk about, Nicholas.
Yeah.
Not because I don't want to, but because I'm just not able to, because of the litigious aspect of the world in which we live in today. Yeah.
I had something I wanted to talk to you about, which the documentary does cover, and you talked a bit about, seeing yourself back and sort of the image that was portrayed of you versus who you actually were, right? And the documentary covers your transition from young talent time to your solo career. And there's a bit of time spent on your 1990 single, I Need Your Body. Now, there's a clip of you in there saying that it was an identity crisis. And I know you've had a conflicted relationship with this song, but, you've come to grips with it.
Sure.
I do have to say, it hit number 3 on the charts, and I think it's a bop. I really enjoy it. I don't know if it's my age. It hits the right way, right? It's a great song. Can you recognize now that song and that part of your life was an important inflection point, even if maybe it wasn't the sound or the look that ultimately served you?
Absolutely, Nicholas. I mean, everything's trial and error. Everything that you do in music is trial and error, or in life, really. So I Need Your Body is a great pop song. It's a proper pop song. It's very well written. It was done well. And I was young and didn't really know anything about image, I mean, back then it wasn't so image driven. Image is always important, but it's not really driven by it. And the fact that, I was a brunette, in the 90s, early 90s, the beginning of the 90s, brunette, wearing black velvet, this really sort of brooding, black velvet in an outfit and, dark makeup and stuff like that. I guess people were just not used to seeing me like that. And then, of course, you've got this, cleavage and people just go, what's going on? But I think that's got a lot to do with the fact that people had always seen me as a little girl. So it was a shock for them, for sure.
Yeah.
And it's a shock for myself as well. But all those things, all those decisions that you make, whether they're good, bad, indifferent, they're the things that you have to go through in order to understand who you are. So there's no regrets about that. That's just where I was at the time. And when I look back at it now, I go, there's an element of sophistication in it that people weren't able to see then because they were so shocked, you know. So I don't know.
What would you say was the hardest narrative about yourself, or maybe the self-talk that you had to break down back then so that you could move forward?
Well, you know, I think when you're dealing with preconceived thoughts all the time, you know, people are like, yeah, she sings well, but, you know, we don't. I think it's a question of people just didn't know what to do. No clue, like zero clue. So I think that's it at the end of the day. They think that they need to micromanage everything. And when in actual fact, if you just let the performers be who it is that they are, and when they're comfortable, I think that's when you see the true performer. But when somebody is being put into a situation where they need to look a certain way because somebody's saying you've got to do this, you've got to do that, at the end of the day, you've got a million people telling you a million different things, and it's very hard to draw a conclusion when you've got different perspectives coming from every single angle, and that's what it was back then. So learning to navigate through that is never easy. It's certainly much easier for me now because I'm like, well, no, this is who I am and I need to remain true to myself. But back then it was really about pleasing everybody else.
Yeah, and you were also at an age when it's so hard to stand up and say to people, like, rack off, you know, like, let me do this, let me do what I need to do.
Yeah. There was a lot of micromanaging back then, which is unbelievably tiring. I think I found that aspect of the business really exhausting because they just micromanage every aspect of your life. And I just, I hated it. Really hated it.
Yeah. You mentioned in the film that you didn't feel worthy of calling yourself an artist for a very long time. Why was that?
Because I really believe that term is something that you earn, Nicholas. You know, I think, you know, the music industry refers to people that have just started in the business as artists. I do believe that it's something that you earn.
Yeah.
And I just didn't really feel that I was back then because I was constantly up against a tremendous amount of adversity and a tremendous amount of manipulation and a lot of a shitload of gaslighting went on, you know, back then. So I didn't have the personal belief within myself to be able to deem myself an artist. I didn't think I was worthy of that title. And that's the honest truth. I thought, no, you can't call me an artist. An artist is somebody that takes a long time to hone their craft. So I'm like, please don't liberally throw that term out like that because I don't think it's accurate. I don't think it's right. So it did take me a long time, but I think the day that I did realize I was an artist also made me realize also why part of the journey was painful as well, because I have my ideas, but then I'm dealing and I'm constantly in battle with other people and their perspectives and the perspective of an industry. So you're in the fucking boxing ring on your own, like literally being ganged up on. And that's a really, really difficult part of what it is that we do. And I realized with the type of personality that I am is I thought, please don't bully me because I'm a collaborator. I'm a team player. I like to play, but I also like to discuss why is your reason? Why do you think that? So I didn't have the discourse back then that I really wanted to have. It was like, no, it's this way or no way. And it's like, sorry? So
Yeah.
Yeah, I struggled. I struggled with that. So it probably made me very feisty as the years went on, because that feistiness was really a survival mechanism.
It's the age-old battle between art and commerce, and there you were, piggy in the middle, right?
Yep, totally.
Yeah, and never the twain shall meet, as much as
Never
we'd
the
like them
twain
to.
shall meet. Absolutely right. It's like water and oil. It doesn't mix at all. And it's a big reason why I think we've come to the point in which we have, musically speaking, where it is such a business model now that the art of it is it's kind of disappeared. There are those artists that do their things very independently, but they are out of the system. But because the systemic of the music just doesn't work anymore. It hasn't worked for a long time.
I'm curious if you watched earlier this year, obviously Kylie Minogue, who, you've known for years, she released her own retrospective documentary series. Did you have a chance to watch it?
Yes, I did. Yeah, very much. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. I mean, she's had an extraordinary career and it's still going, really, really beautifully. And it was joyous for me to watch it, because I think that if anyone really understands what Kylie's been through, I guess I can have probably a much better understanding than most. Her sister will understand very, very well. She's performed all her life. I've performed all my life. So I guess we have a level of understanding that goes beyond what the public see. The commitment, the sacrifice, the ups and the downs, a lot of downs, the work that's required.
You were at the AFL Grand Final a couple of years ago on stage with Katy Perry. Kylie's doing the 2026 AFL Grand Final. Yeah. Will you be in the stands to watch her, do you think?
I don't usually go to the grand final. I'll usually watch it on TV. I was there, 2 years ago with Katie, and we had a really good time, actually. But I try and avoid crowds like that, because I get a bit freaked out in crowds like that, but I'm sure it'll be fun.
Now, along with the documentary, we can also reveal on this podcast that you have a new EP coming soon. It's called Way of the World. It's 6 tracks, versions of songs by bands like New Order, Duran Duran, Depeche Mode, even the short-lived Michael Hutchence side project Max Q. What drove your selection of these songs that you put on this EP? Okay,
well, it's really funny because, Michael Hutchence was so featured in Kylie's documentary. We started working on this EP last year. So I had no idea about the documentary that she was doing or anything of the sort. The EP for me it's a celebration of songs that were really profound through my growing years. Depeche Mode, I always loved. New Order, I loved. My sister loved. Duran Duran, grew up with Duran Duran, was lucky enough to meet them several years ago. They're really great guys. They're just songs that speak to me, Nicholas, and speak to me really loudly. I relate to the stories. I relate to those worlds very, very much. So for me, it's a retrospective of a small body of work of people that I really love. I also was lucky to do a cover of Cayendo by Frank Ocean in Spanish, which was, not easy, but I gave it a go. And then also covering a song that I grew up listening to as a little girl called Torno Bambina, meaning come back little girl. And that was a song that won the San Remo Music Festival in the 1970s by a beautiful artist by the name of Loretta Goggi. And these women had San Remo for me in the 1970s was a real musical reference because There's some female Italian singers that have voices that are just outerworldly, like they're just like amazing. And this song for me was really important to do because I loved it so much as a kid. And to be able to do an interpretation of this beautiful story and melody was just joyous for me. And to be able to sing in my mother tongue, because I only spoke Italian up until I was 5 years old. And then when I went to school, I started speaking English. And then later on in years, I started speaking French. So I have 3 languages under my belt, and I am able to sing a little bit in Spanish. And I really enjoy the challenge of it. I love it. I love the sensibility. I love going into those worlds. It's just, they're just beautiful, beautiful journeys for me. I just love it. So the record is, I think it's a record that is very much a sound and a moment of the kind of world in which we live in. And then to do a rendition of Way of the World by Michael Hutchence, which was on his Max Q project many, many years ago. When I heard that song, I was freaked out. Like, I was literally freaked out. I had goosebumps. My hair was standing on end. The hairs on my arms were like nails. And then I went, okay, I need to read this story. So I researched and found the lyrics online and started to read them. And I went, wow. So Ollie Olsen wrote it, who worked with Michael on it. And the lyrics are incredible. The lyrics are about now. So it's almost like, that's what I find astounding and amazing about songwriting, is that you can be writing something in a moment, and years later, after that song comes out, you have an epiphany and you go, shit, now I know what that song is all about. I wrote it about this because at the time I was going through that. So you join the dots with the story and the experiences that you've had, which then come out and make music. That's what's extraordinary. And I just found that the lyrics of that song were so appropriate with regards to the world in which we live in today. So I thought, that's got to be told. I've got to do it.
It sounds like you had some really nice full circle moments while you were making this. I will shout out the Duran Duran song. I think that song speaks to their versatility, because that song versus something like Rio, I mean, it's almost
unbelievable
when you think that that's the same band.
I know, what a juxtaposition. There's polar opposites, absolutely.
And they're both amazing. I was lucky enough to see a bit of behind the scenes footage of you recording the EP. And in one of the sessions, you walked into the studio and you said, "We're not rushing. There's no point." And I want to know what you meant by that. Were there times in the past when you rushed through your work and maybe regretted the result?
Yes, Nicholas, absolutely.
Yeah.
When you're part of a machine, you have to adhere to the timing of the machine. You are constantly working against the stop clock all the time. And I just refuse to do that. I refuse to do that anymore. I won't do that. I won't work with a gun to my head anymore. I worked with a gun to my head for years. You got to do it now. Now, we need it now. We need it tomorrow. And I haven't even had time to think about it. I haven't had time to make any notes about things. I need time to just think about, I need reflection time. I'm a Scorpio. That's the way I work. I take the time to really mull things over. So then I can come to some sort of a conclusion, and then I'm able to put my point forward.
I can tell you, as a journalist, a deadline can be your best friend or your worst enemy.
Sure, a deadline can
Yeah.
work. It can work very favorably as well. I know that there's a lot of people that work to deadlines. Absolutely. And I get it. And some people do it brilliantly. I'm at a point, I'm 60 next year, Nicholas. Yeah, no.
Yeah. You've earned the right
Sorry.
to slow down. Yeah. Yeah.
I'll do it at my timing. And that's
Yeah.
okay. And if you're not okay with that, I'm really sorry. I can only go at my pace now, and I will only go at my pace.
I wanted to kind of open up the discussion as well on just some of your reflections on Australia and the arts. I was quite taken by something you say in the very opening moments of Tina Arena Unravel Me, which is you're describing Australia in the 1970s, which is, of course, when you were a little girl. And you mentioned that there was a certain naivety that has since disappeared. What do you think we've lost along the way?
We've lost sincerity. We've lost sincerity because, it's not only Australia, it's everywhere. The business model's taken over. It's about the bottom line. That's what it is. So we've lost the magic of creation. We've lost the importance of what creation means. We've lost the respect for it. So what we ultimately respect is just the dollar. So it's very tragic, but you can hear that loss of respect in what's being produced. Because what was always amazing about music was also the curation of it. The fact that people really genuinely loved it and made great music, and music that evolved and that grew and that experimented and that questioned and, lyrically, musically, the sound, all sorts of things like that. We've lost the heart of it because, the corporates took over and came in and basically said, we're going to tell you how the landscape works. And because the business ultimately is run and by money, money is their driving primary factor, the art has been lost as a result of all of that. So then what will happen is that real artists, a lot of them tend to stay away from because they're deemed difficult. And then they go with a lot of the younger kids that, are prepared to sign their lives away. Whilst then the big companies, the major labels end up making all the money. And then, what they've done, they have absolutely, and I can safely say it because I'm very comfortable in my thought. I've been around for 50 years. But they have spectacularly destroyed a beautiful craft. And now with artificial intelligence coming in, we have a bunch of technocrats coming into our country and telling our Australian politicians and our musical organisations how we should what we should do with our copyright. Or effectively, your copyright doesn't exist, so what you've put together on a constitution level and what the Copyright Act is, we don't give a shit. So we will steal your work, we will copy your likeness, we will copy your voice, and we'll do everything, and we don't give a fuck what you say. Sorry, excuse me, did I miss something here? Did I miss something?
Yeah.
And we're supposed to have gratitude. No. Do you know what? I think, Nicholas, for me, I see it a little bit differently now. And I don't believe that my perspective is arrogant at all, although I'm sure some people may think that it's maybe a bit offensive. What these people probably have lost sight of is that a business model would not exist if it wasn't for the creation of intellectual property. And the fact that that is disrespected and at the very bottom of the ladder poses a massive issue for me. And the fact that people haven't stood up and gone, no, sorry, it doesn't work like that. If you want my work, you pay me for it. You don't steal my work. We can't steal your software programs. We can't steal any of your stuff. We can't get around it. We can't get around all sorts of things like that. But the fact that you guys think that you can is the height of unbelievable arrogance on their behalf and massive disrespect. Not to mention that it's a crime. It's called stealing, Nicholas.
Yeah. The documentary touches upon your Italian roots and growing up as the daughter of immigrants in what was still at the time an overwhelmingly Anglo-Saxon country.
Yes.
And today there is a renewed debate about our multiracial identity, and there's fiery discussions around whether or not we should be a quote-unquote monoculture. I would like to know what your take is on that conversation, given your family's history.
Well, I think one of the greatest political mistakes of the last sort of 20-odd years is globalisation. Because, in fact, what it's done is it's homogenised the world. Everybody looks the same, everybody sounds the same, everybody follows the same systems. Again, it's international interference of them implementing their structures into our civilizations and into our cultures and saying you need to do things this way. And in having adopted those systems, those global systems, we've had a massive loss of identity. If you think about Australia produced extraordinary music in the 70s, in the 80s, and in the 90s. As soon as the noughts hit, it started to change because that's when America started to come in and basically just take over our musical airwaves. The UK came in, took over all our musical airwaves, and just basically, and the Australian artists, those that were signed here and produced here, basically had to take a number and go to the back of the queue and go, yeah, you're not relevant, actually. You're not as important as, you know, all our international American acts that sell lots and lots. So you take a number and you as the local go to the back of the queue. And while the Americans and the English are all in front, you know, sitting there rubbing their hands together. And heaven forbid had you said anything. I remember having conversations with people back then, I'm talking 20 years ago, and people going to me, oh, that kind of comment can only come from a jealous artist. And I went, sorry? I said, hang on a second, a jealous artist. I'm not jealous. That's the first thing I have to say. I've been so lucky to have had the career that I've had. Stops tomorrow. If I look back at it, you could not be not amazed by what's been achieved. But I found that really, again, that's another perfect example of being gaslit. That typical bullshit Freudian mentality of, how can you say that, da-da-da, you're ungrateful, you know, I don't understand that perspective, da-da-da. And I was like, what's difficult to understand? We're in Australia. Australian artists should be prioritised, and they shouldn't have to constantly compete with what comes out from overseas, because that's just called protecting your market, making sure that the people in this country and the musicians in this country have enough food on their plates so that they can eat, or have enough money in their accounts so that they can pay for the roof over their heads. So you want to look to me as somebody who's envious for making a comment like that? I think it was at that point in time that I realised how incredibly stupid they were, actually, and that I couldn't possibly take that personally, because I'm coming from a different place. I'm just coming from a place of, what about our ecosystem?
Yeah.
I'm just defending our ecosystem.
Yeah.
I'm not committing a crime. I'm not saying that anybody's bad. I'm not doing this. I'm not envious of other artists. In all sincerity, I'm not. I've so much respect for artists, global artists. But I do believe that was the driving factor, and that the Australian artistic community unfortunately took a back seat.
We had Melissa George on the podcast a few weeks ago. So she's, of course, now based in France, which is where you lived for several years.
Correct.
And you've mentioned in the past that France offered you some much-needed anonymity and some escape from judgment. Why do you think so many high-profile Australians feel the need to move away for a while or even permanently?
Because Australia's just too much of a small market. And in Australia, you're dealing with the internationals. They take they take pole position. We don't. We really don't, and that's just the truth. So that's why the Australians have to leave. And Australians are incredible workers. Like, the work ethic I see of my fellow Australians, regardless of what job they do, doesn't matter whether they're in business, doesn't matter whether they're in finance, doesn't matter whether they're in arts, doesn't matter where they are. But what you do see is that they have just a tenacity and a love for life that's really quite extraordinary. And they're federators. Aussies are federators. They know how to bring people together. They're really good at that. But they have to get out of here because it's too small. It's just too small. I had to leave. It was too small. There were just other things I needed to experience. And I was happy to go somewhere and start again. Not knowing at all what I was going to encounter in France. I had no idea that I was going to have that kind of success. No idea.
Well, it was a good decision in the end.
It was a great decision to disappear for a while. Yeah.
Melissa actually told us that she's sometimes nudges you to find her a house on your street if she ever moves home and settles in Melbourne. Are you keeping your eyes peeled for any sales?
I do. I keep my eyes peeled for her. I love Mel. I have a really beautiful friendship with her. She's a woman I profoundly respect because I know what she's gone through and I know the sacrifices she's made. She's very curious, she's hardworking, she's gentle, she's loving, and she'll always be there. Like, if you need to talk, she'll always pick up the phone, and I'm the same. So there's a real respect and a support for one another. It takes some serious courage to leave here and go and plonk yourself in France because culturally they are really different. They do things differently to Australians, that's for sure. But that's what's beautiful about the world, is getting to experience different approaches.
You performed at the opening ceremony of the Sydney Olympics in 2000. We have Brisbane 2032 on the horizon. If the call came, would you say yes to performing at those games?
Oh, of course I would. I'd never say no. Never say no. But it'll be time to showcase the incredible talent that this country has in 2032. It shouldn't be me. It should be somebody else.
All right. Well, here's an idea. Why don't you, if they haven't hired them yet, musical director? That way you can push all of these great Australian artists to the fore. There you go.
Well,
I figured out what you're doing after you released the documentary
we'll
and the
see.
EP. Tina, when you were last with us, you also spoke about your son, Gabriel. He had moved overseas during the pandemic. He's turning 21 later this year, I believe.
Yeah.
How's he doing? And do you get to see him much?
He's doing really great, and he's at home with me now, so it's really good. He lives with me
fabulous.
now. Yeah.
Oh, he's back with you.
Yes.
Oh, that must make your heart just swell.
Yeah, I missed my boy. Yeah. He's amazing, Nicholas. He's amazing. He's doing well. It's been, he's part of that generation of kids that was really massively basculated through the lockdowns. And like most of our children's, that generation, the psychological stuff that they went through, the pressure and so forth, was excruciatingly unfair. And I have very strong views about it. I don't know whether not everybody shares those views, but, at the end of the day, when you live something, you can't really challenge somebody's perspective when they've lived something. And it was a shocking, shocking time. Again, when you said to me at the beginning of the conversation, are there things that you leave out that you can't talk about? Of course, there are things I can't talk about.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because of a myriad of different reasons. But I'm very happy to say he's home. He came home in January of this year and he's with me, and I'm absolutely loving having him around.
Oh, good. I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah.
And I hope the 21st is a big fun bash for him.
Oh, I'm sure
Within
it'll
reason.
be a party.
I saw you cringe a little there. Tina, also, I wanted to ask you, earlier this year, you revealed that in 2023, you had a severe kidney infection and septicaemia, which landed you in intensive care and knocked you around for several months. You said it taught you to slow down and to let some things go. Would you say it changed your sense of ambition, having gone through that?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Because my health became very fragile. And it could have, it could have ended up being tragic had I not had a former partner of mine not been vigilant and called the ambulance and got me taken to hospital immediately, because it was borderline for me. And because I'm the type of person that's always had an extraordinary threshold to pain, and I've usually worked through a lot of stuff, I think it was the first time in my life where I went, okay, you're not invincible, and if there's something wrong, you need to deal with it. So I realized then that my health was the most important thing, and not the work.
Yeah. And you'll have to forgive me, because as a gay man of a certain age, everything tends to come back to Madonna for me. But I was also thinking about the fact that she underwent a similar battle that same year. She had sepsis, and she was in an induced coma. And a lot of people think that it's brought out a new sense of reflectiveness and maybe even a softness in her, just having gone through that. Would you say that that was also an effect on you?
For sure.
Yeah.
I've got so much respect for her. I've never met her. I've admired her. She's strong. She calls a spade, and she's very much, because of that generation, she's very much, look, I'm the boss. I make the decisions here. And that she's right to do. It's her life, right? She's a 67-year-old woman who's got nothing to prove. Your health becomes very fragile at a certain point in your life. And when you're staring down the barrel of potential death, because septicemia can kill you, all right? And there are a lot of people during the COVID time who contracted septicemia after having operations and were intervened with whatever was going on. There was a lot of people who lost their lives. And I remember my doctor saying to me at that time, because I think she told me because she wanted me to realize the severity of what I was going through. And she said, what you're going through now, she said, they turned off people's machines during COVID. And I think that's when the light globe went off for me, and I went, shit, okay. And that's when a lot of things changed. A lot of things had to change for me. And I actually had to start prioritizing myself properly, as opposed to putting everybody else before me, which was definitely what I did for a very long period of time, and to my detriment as well.
Society loves for women to become invisible as they grow older. You seem to be more visible. You seem to be more comfortable in your skin than you ever have been. What's the best part about being Tina Arena at this exact chapter in your life?
I don't give a fuck. I'm sorry, excuse my language, but I really don't. I don't care to try and impress anybody. That's not what life is about.
Yeah.
Well,
It's a
life is
liberating way
about
to
being
think.
you and showing all of those, showing your good points, showing your hard points, points that where you're weaker and you may not be, you know, you may not know what you're doing, your vulnerabilities, the imperfections. I'm not perfect, but I'm comfortable with who I am. It took me a long time. I don't try and fit in anybody's box. And if people have a problem with aging, it's actually their problem. It's not my problem. I'm 60 next year. I'm looking forward to it. You don't care anymore.
Yeah.
I don't need anybody's approval for anything. I just need to be kind to myself.
And wouldn't that be a nice lesson for all of us to learn earlier than in life?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if we can teach them, if Madonna doing what it is that she's doing at 67 gives other people some sort of an impetus of, you know what, doesn't matter what you are. Doesn't matter what she does. Doesn't matter what she does. If she wants to do her face, if she wants to wear those clothes, at the end of the day, it's her prerogative.
Yeah.
Now, who is anybody to judge, really?
You have seen and heard it all. You've had the highest highs. You've had some of the lowest lows.
Yeah.
At this stage of your journey, what matters most to you as a performer and as an artist?
Being mentally healthy and physically healthy. That's what means most to me as an artist. Because without your mental health or without your physical health, you can't do anything. So that's what matters to me now. And the other thing too is that if you want to do anything artistically, that you do it because you actually really want to do it, not because you think it's expected of you. I'm only interested in doing things that are interesting to me. Then if they're interesting to me, I'm sure they're going to be interesting to someone else. I don't see why my perspective would be unique, So
Yeah.
I just believe in enjoying myself. I'm enjoying myself still, but I will slow down, and because there's a lot of life still to experience. I think for me, being free is the greatest achievement at this stage in my life, hitting 50 years and feeling free.
That's great.
Took me a long time to feel free.
Yeah.
It cost me a lot, spiritually, financially, but my freedom is more to me than anything. It means more to me than anything, because then I can't be bought. You can't buy me. I'm not one of those people at all.
Well, Tina, it's been a pleasure to talk to you today. Thank you so much for joining me. And it's been a real pleasure, and good luck with the documentary and the release of the EP.
Thank you so much, Nicholas. Thanks so much for your time. Thanks for chatting to me.